Welcome to the Cape Information Technology IA walkthrough done by me, Mr. Charles. This video in somehow, some way is going to help you with your journey through your Cape Information Technology IA, either Unit 1 or Unit 2. Just to let you know, the sources of all the information that are inside this video were sourced from 1, the official syllabus, which you will see a link in the description for, 2, the examiner's reports for the old syllabus, because that has a treasure trove of information about how they mark the IAs, and 3, 10 plus years of experience teaching Cape Information Technology and submitting IAs every single year. So, first of all, enjoy. I hope the information helps you. And second of all, I am not your teacher. This is a guide. And because it's a guide, I will give some best practices that I would have seen in the different sources and things that I would have done myself. But if your teacher requires you to do something different, please listen to your teacher, but also read the syllabus and read the examiner's reports. And I hope that you do well in your Cape ITIA. So, we're into video number 3. And video number 3 is going to be broken up into 4 parts, or 3 parts. 3 parts, I believe, right? We're going to break it up into 3 parts, and what is going to happen is I'm going to show you what the application of the fact-finding techniques looks like. It'll be very long and it'll be very detailed, but my goal is to do this once and for all, so nobody will ever have to have a question for the next 10 years until the syllabus changes again, right? So what you're going to see is we're going to go through part 1, which will be the questionnaire. The second one will be the interviews, and the third one will be review of documents. Last one will be observation. But I might do review of documents and observation together, depending on how it goes. We'll see how the timing goes, if I could do it quickly enough. If not, it'll probably be 2 short videos after that, right? But definitely the questionnaire video and the interviews video is going to be long and in-depth, and we're going to go through what the analysis is going to look like. Now, the analysis of the problem is essentially you have to use 3 fact-finding techniques to sort of draw conclusions about what the problem actually is. Because your problem definition gives you a very broad scope, and your problem definition doesn't tell you where the problem actually exists and how it actually manifests itself. So what you're trying to do with the analysis stage is you're trying to see how does the problem manifest itself? How does it actually happen? What do people actually experience? And when you figure that out, then you'll be at the point where you could create a solution. Now, we do know that you have to go either the website route or the database route. And you have in your mind, okay, I am going to build a website for this. But when you're doing the analysis, you can't have in your mind, like for sure, 100% sure that you're going to build a website for this. You have to have in your mind, all right, I'm trying to find out all of the problems that are there so I could pinpoint it. More than likely, because my teacher guided me this way, it's going to end up in a website, but I'm not going to bottle myself into asking questions that will lead them towards a website all the time. You don't want to do that. You just want to get raw data, process it, and get the information. And that information should lead you to a conclusion or some sort of application that you want to build that will be able to fix the problem. So the whole point is to go through these fact-finding techniques. So here are your 4 techniques, right? Questionnaires are 1. Questionnaires would be like closed-ended questions that are very specific to bottle people into giving personal choices. The real goal of the questionnaire is you want to send out a large amount of people. Large amount of people means more data you collect. The more data you collect, the better your information will be, because your margin of error will get smaller and smaller the more you get data from people. So you're going to try to get the questionnaires out to as much people as possible. Make sure they're close-ended. We'll go into that. Interviews are usually longer questions. They tend to be open-ended. They give the respondent a chance to elaborate on certain things. So the interview questions need to be crafted in such a way that it gets people to respond, and you don't tell them what to say, but you open it up for them to give their views, and then you take their views and you analyze it to pull out sort of like essential and desirable things about it. When you could pull out the essential and desirable things about it, you'll be able to come up with conclusions a little easier. Observation, you have to physically, or in real time, observe the situation and see what happens on a daily basis or weekly basis or whatever it may be. And when you observe it, you do a sort of checklist to tell what is taking place. And from that checklist, you could draw conclusions also. And the last one, which is review of documents. Review of documents is getting actual documents from the institution or the place. Now, if you looked at the first video, you'll realize when it's time to choose the topic, I told you all to make sure that you choose a topic where you could actually get the information. Because review of documents is usually a very ticklish one because people don't like to reveal their actual situations or the actual things that they do. So oftentimes children don't get to the review of documents properly, but it may be possible. If the review of documents are very straightforward things like, let's say, a flyer that people advertise with or something as public information, you could review those documents. But in terms of like financial and logistical and database stuff, it doesn't always work out that well. But I'll still show you all how to do it, and if you can get to do it, you should do it. Now, do you have to do all 4? No, you don't have to. The syllabus only requires 3. But if you could do all 4, you give yourself a little parachute to say, well, if one of them is trash, I'll still get you 3 marks. Because this is the hardest 3 marks, okay, the second hardest 3 marks of the whole IA. And yeah, so let's go into it and see how you handle it. So we'll go into questionnaire in this video. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the video and you're going through it and you're enjoying the knowledge that you're getting and you're learning things that you didn't learn before. But if there's some things that you're still not too sure about, or you may not be getting the help that you need because of the type of project that you're doing, you could check us out, and we do have dedicated IA assistance classes where Mr. Charles, well, me, I will give you personal help for whatever you may need, because you just may not be too sure depending on your situation. Some people may be doing it on their own, some people may not have a teacher, some people may not be able to go to school. So you could check us out, WhatsApp 1-868-308-8799, or you could go to the website makeITsimpleTT.com/register. Alright, welcome back to the Cape ITIA. This is video number 3, I believe. So far we would have covered the syllabus, the layout of the document, problem definition, and Gantt chart. So we've reached the point where we are on the analysis of the problem. So, analysis of the problem. This is where you have to use the fact-finding techniques that are necessary. And the fact-finding techniques are given by the syllabus. The 4 fact-finding techniques that you can use. Hold on. Yeah. So the fact-finding techniques are given in the syllabus, and the 4 fact-finding techniques that you are allowed to use are as follows. I'm going to put them in one time, which would be questionnaires. Let me just make this a little bigger. Questionnaires, interviews, review of documents, and observation. Alright, those are the ones that are listed on the syllabus, and those are the ones that we are going to be doing. So I'm going to try to show you how to do each one of them. I won't do it all the way through, but I'll give you a good runway for you to understand what is necessary in order for you to be able to get the marks for these. Remember, this is 3 marks, eh? This is one of the hardest parts for the IA because you have a lot of work to do to get 3 marks, and there are so many places where you can lose marks, and you don't want to lose that 1 mark because, as I explained to you, there's out of 20, whatever mark you get, you have to multiply it by 3, and you could easily be on the way to get 60 out of 60 and then make 1 mistake here and then end up getting 57 out of 60, right? So let's go. So the first thing I'll do for each one of these is I will change them to heading 2 because I want them to come in as subheadings in the table of content, right? So questionnaires. I'll put the questionnaire on one page and the interview will go on another page. Review of documents will go on the next page, and observation will go on the next page. All these things are page breaks. You do the page break by pressing Control and Enter, right? So questionnaire. What you want to do for your questionnaire is you want to create a set of questions that are going to collect data. The whole point of the analysis of the problem is that you want to get as much information as possible that points to the fact that there is an issue. If you can't point to the fact that there is an issue, then you can't come up with a solution. Now, what you want to avoid is you don't want to try to come up with an issue and make it look like you are forcing your problem to be there. Like, you don't want to try to manufacture the problem and then ask questions in such a way that they sort of kind of fabricate the issue so that you'll be able to come up with a solution for it. The solution actually has to be like necessary for the research that you are doing. Now, in order to do that, you have to do proper research. And in order to do the proper research, you have to do proper things like ask proper questions. So for the questionnaire, what you want to do is you want to ask a set of closed-ended questions that are easy for the for the respondent to answer and give simple feedback. Alright, the goal is to gather useful information, useful data that you can draw conclusions from, right? Which is basically the concept of data information. So you want to be able to get questions that will collect a lot of data, because questionnaires are geared towards a large amount of people, so you can get a large amount of data. When you do these questionnaires, you want to send them out to multiple people. You'll be using Google Forms, right? Now, after you finish your questionnaire, you want to you want to draw conclusions from the graphs generated that point to a particular issue that the people are having. Draw conclusions from, not from, right? What you'll realize is that depending on the problem that you have, you are going to have to do questionnaires for different sets of people. Sometimes you might have to do questionnaires for the customers, sometimes you might have to do questionnaires for the employees, sometimes you might have to do questionnaires for the people that run it, depending on the amount. But most of the time, the questionnaires will always go to the people that actually experience any problem. So the people that actually experience any problem would usually be customers. Now, in this case, our problem definition is about the cafeteria in a school. So the school cafeteria, the problem is experienced by the students. So therefore, my questionnaire is basically going to be geared towards those particular students. If it were a different type of problem where, let's say there is two sports teams that have different problems, or two sports teams that are doing something, you might gear one set of questions to one sports team and a next set of questions to the sports team, or one set of questionnaires to the sports teams and another questionnaire to the officials, because sometimes the problem affects two sets of people and you want to make sure that you get the information from both sides so you could see that your solution will solve the problem holistically, right? But as I said, 90% of the time, it's just one set of people, which is the customers you have to deal with. But you just have to pay attention with your IA, how you're going to come up with these questions, right? So here's what we're going to do. In the end, the only thing that is going to be in this section is a paragraph and a reference to a graph. I'll say it one more time. In the end, the only thing that's going to be in this section is a paragraph and a reference to a graph. So when you're building the questionnaire, it's not actually going to be in the IA document. Building the questionnaire is going to be in the appendix. You're going to put in the appendix the questions that you want to put, why you want to put it, and the options that you want to choose. Then you're going to put an example of a sample questionnaire, then you have to put an example of a filled out questionnaire, because you have to show that the questionnaire actually went out and people actually filled it out. And that's the part that's getting a little annoyed, because you're doing all of this for 1 mark when they could have easily broken it down into multiple marks. But you'll hear me ranting about that through all the videos, because it's a thing that teachers complain about all the time. So there you go. So we're going to come up with this questionnaire. Now I'm putting it here, but in the end it's not going to be here. So when you reach to the point of finishing the analysis, I'll show you all how to put it in the appendix one time, right? So we're going to ask the question, and I'll put it in like bullet points So the questions will be numbered 1. Right. Now, types of questions you want to ask. You don't want to ask, what is your age? Why do you need to know the age? Do you need to know the age of the students because that matters to you solving the problem in the cafeteria? The problem is that they don't know the menu for that particular day and they have to spend a long amount of time reading what is written on the chalkboard outside the cafeteria. If that's the problem, then knowing the age of a student not really going to help you solve that problem. Not going to matter at all. However, if let's say there are like different forms in your school and each form has, or each grade has a different time that they go to the cafeteria, you may want to ask something like what class or what form are you in? Right? Form or grade or whatnot. Because that may be necessary for you to figure out, okay, only people in lower forms have this problem because a lot more of them go there, or people in upper forms have this problem, and therefore when you're crafting a solution, you could remember that, okay, there is a distinction between lower and upper forms, so when I build the website or I build the database, I have to cater to those things. So you might want to ask them what form you are in, and then you will say what type, how you're going to collect the data. So you're going to put 1, you name it. Well, what I usually try to do is I tell people name how they want to do it. So it'll be like a multiple choice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? Right. So that gives me a gauge of what the question is going to be, what the type of choices are going to be like, because you have to vary the type of choices because it's a questionnaire. You don't want to make it too monotonous or boring so people don't want to fill it out, right? And then I'll put reasoning. This was asked because the form that they are in may affect the type or the length of the line. Right, that's all you want to put because you want to show the examiner that you understand why you put this question in. Why did I do that? Because in an examiner's report, let me see if I can get it for y'all. Yeah, mouse. I think I could find it. An examiner's report, there is a statement where they say the teacher should provide guidance in the structuring of the questions and checklists. Students should only include graphs where appropriate. For example, it's necessary to provide a pie chart to summarize the responses to a question requiring a yes or no answer. Students are encouraged to thoroughly analyze the possible causes utilizing the data tools to gather information on the issues for future interpretation, rather than approach data capturing techniques with preconceived ideas of how the problem should be resolved. So that's what I was explaining before. You're trying not to use your preconceived notion of what the problem is and how they're going to fix it. So you're trying to make sure your questionnaire is following the rules of questionnaires, which is they should be short, concise, close-ended, and the people should be able to respond to it very fast, right? So length of the line. So what's another question I should ask if I know what form they're in and there's an issue with the cafeteria line, right? I should ask for the people, how often do you go to the cafeteria? Now, you have some choices here to be like, okay, what do I tell them? Once a day, twice a day, 5 times a week or something like that. Whatever scale you use, just make sure it makes sense, right? So usually you could put multiple choice and you want to put once a week, twice per week, no, 2 to 3 times a week. I'll put out numbers 1 to 2 times. So how often do you go to the cafeteria per week, right? If you could save yourself that trouble of having to write over a week all the time, 1 to 2 times, 3 to 5 times, 5 plus, right? So that gives them 3 choices. They either fall one of the 3 brackets. Why would I ask this question? Because I want to know if the respondents, how often they go to the cafeteria, because I could use that data to be like, okay, on average, people go to the cafeteria more than 5 times per week, right? Based on all the respondents, I could say that. And somewhere in the document, somewhere in the analysis, somewhere in the write-up, I could say the reason I'm putting this in place is because on average, blah, 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 X amount of people go to the cafeteria every week. And that will show that your analysis fed into your reasoning later down in the document. That's basically the goal. So I'll put this can show how many of the respondents, how frequently they go to the cafeteria. Right, something like that, right? Now those are things that are necessary, but we haven't asked anything meaty yet. We haven't asked anything that is going to actually get to solving your problem. What we've asked so far is what I would call biodata, or not really biodata, but it's kind of like data on the outskirts. It's just things that could give you context. Because remember, data plus context gives you information. So these 2 questions here are like context questions. I usually try to recommend you get like about 4 or 5 context questions so that you would have a framework to work with, so that when you say things in your IA, you would have had some context. But interviews usually give you a lot more pinpoint information. Questionnaires give you broad information. So with the questionnaire, try to get as much context as possible in those first 5 questions, right? Now, so I will put repeat the repeat, or try to get about 5 context questions. Alright, so now when I go on, let's say I have 3 sample, right? So I get the 5, so I get the 6 now, right? So those 3, 4, 5 would be sample questions, and now 6. When I finish, get those context questions, right? Because your IA may require you to get a lot of context to kind of understand what is happening, because it will help you come up with a solution better, which is exactly the goal I want to have, right? Now I want to get to the meat of the matter. So my problem is that they don't know the menu for that particular day, and they have to spend a long time reading what is written on the chalkboard outside the cafeteria. So that's the big problem. Now I want to figure out, okay, how does that problem manifest itself? What is the long time? Something like that, right? So I want to get information and be like, how long is the cafeteria line on average when you get there? And then I would be like, multiple choice. Right, now when you have these multiple choice, you could also choose drop down boxes, but for questionnaires it's very easy to just do multiple choice. I usually recommend for questionnaires that you use multiple choice and scale, because when you do a multiple choice, you'll always get a number. Numbers are very easy to analyze and you'll get the graphs very easily. Scales are easy too, because it's essentially a number and they drag it alongside. And for some variety, you could put a scale. Anytime you put like tick boxes and check boxes where people could choose 2 things or 3 things or 4 things, you will have a problem. You will still get a graph, but you may be giving yourself too much choices, and then the graph would really point to an issue. But you can, depending on the problem that you have. So for example, if you have do you think something should be done? If so, which one should be implemented? And you give them like 10 things to choose from and they choose 2. You could do that, and then you'll get a nice graph that will show that, okay, a lot of people chose this one and that one, showing that there is a correlation of the data there. But the goal is, remember, you're trying to pull out information that will help you come up with your solution, right? So multiple choice, how long is the cafeteria line on large? 1 to 3 people, 4 to 6, 7 to 10, and then you go 11 plus, right? Meaning, okay, you want to see if the lines are long. If you could show that the lines are long, then you could say, all right, there is a problem. We're not too sure exactly where it is yet, but there is a problem. So this will show if the lines are long in the cafeteria. Right. All right, question 7. Now we want to say, How do you find out what is on sale on a daily basis? Now you could ask for some other stuff, which is you could give checkboxes, and you could say from a friend, the chalkboard, you don't, it's a surprise, or memory, because sometimes you might memorize what they have on particular days and you just decide, okay, today is fries day, or today is chicken day, or today is curry day, or something like that. But the thing is, I'm giving them checkboxes so they could choose which one. Now, if I end up getting somebody choosing from a friend and memory, that means that they don't actually see the chalkboard. So I could take that answer, if the answer comes out to be that it's from a friend and memory, that they don't even see the chalkboard, so therefore there is a problem. If a lot of them say that they see it from the chalkboard, well then I have to now find out, okay, the chalkboard itself may not be the problem, visibility to the chalkboard may be the problem. So this question here could prove that there is an issue, or it could prove that there is no issue and you won't use it. But the point is, you're trying to get the information as much as possible. So the reasoning for this, I'll be like this, will show how they get their information. Right? So then 7, right? Do you know that there is a chalkboard that is updated daily? And you could give them a simple choice, multiple choice, and put yes or no. This will highlight clearly if the chalkboard even has a chance of working. Right, and then 9, you would say, if you read the chalkboard, is it updated regularly? And then you could put multiple choice, and you'll put never, sometimes, often, or always. Right? That now gives you the information about, okay, this mysterious chalkboard that they write on, do they get that information? Is it updated regularly? And I'll do one more question to give you, just to give you a sample, because remember, just kind of giving you ideas of how to approach this. Now, let's say I want to know what the issue is with the chalkboard, or has the reported menu ever changed? And you go multiple choice. And you could say, or how often does the reported menu be wrong? Yeah, how often is the reported menu wrong? Right? When I say reported, I probably mean reported on the chalkboard, right? Choice, and you could say sometimes, no, never, sometimes, often, and always. Right, now, we reached the 10 questions, and I'm trying to get you to reach the 15, right? I'm trying to get you to reach the 15. The reason you're trying to get to reach the 15 is because I usually try to break them up into 5s. 5s will give you context, the next 5 will give you point out the solution, and then the next 5 should kind of, not the solution, point out the issue, and then the next 5 or 10 or whatever should sort of kind of ask them, okay, if you were to do something, what would you like better, or something like that, right? So your next set of questions now, which will be from like 11 up. Now you could do more than these, right? So you could put sample. Right, so we could put up to that. Whatever, doesn't matter. When we reach to this next batch of questions now, I want to ask questions along the lines of, that's not, what I just put, try to get 5 to 10 pinpoint questions. Right, so you put that in. Next set of questions now would be, if they were to change the chalkboard, what would be a good choice? Then you could put multiple choice again. You could put website, flyers, text message, and I don't know, emails, something like that. Right, something along those choices, and the people will choose whatever they have to choose. Now you know in your head that you've gone in for a website, so you're hoping that everybody answers and says website here. But if they choose something else, you can at least show that the students want something other than the chalkboard. And you could say that a solution is put in place. And then later on, you could justify why you chose a website instead of, let's say, emails, because the emails would have been cumbersome. Or text message because it'll cost you money. Or flyers because they will get lost or something like that. Or it'll be expensive to print them. So you could always justify that. So you could still use this answer as a reason for justifying that there is an issue, because they clearly show that they don't want the chalkboard. And then some things would be like, let's say 15 on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 to 10. How frustrated are you with the service? When it comes to knowing what is available on that day, right? On that day. And then you could say, oh, sorry, I forgot to put justification for this. This will point out that they do want an alternative. Yeah. Right. Knowing what is available on that day. Cool. And this one would be a scale. And you just put 1 to 10. Alright, Google Forms gives you the ability to do that, and of course this will give you some sort of average to let you know that, okay, 75% are frustrated. This is one of your go-to questions here to use for your analysis, to say, okay, based on our questionnaire, 75% of the people are frustrated. And then you could use some of the other things that you point out to show that, okay, this is why they are frustrated, or these are the things that they said, and stuff like that, right? And let's see if I could squeeze in another question. Question 16 could be, what we could try to do here, boy. We could try to say, if a daily website, no, you don't want to kind of pigeonhole it into a website to try to make them see that, okay, you want to do a website only. You could say like, have you ever used a service where you can see the menu in advance and it worked well for you? And then you could get them the easy yes or no. Alright, so these here, try to get the views of the respondents. Alright, so you're trying to get as much questionnaire questions as possible, right? So if you could get to 20, you win, right? I just find 20 does sound like a good number. Sometimes you could get through with less. The thing is, at the end of this, you need to have 3 graphs. Out of all your questions, you need to find 3 graphs that point to your issue. If you can get 3 graphs that point to your issue, well, you win. So that is the questionnaire part of it. Now I'm going to speed through the creation of a questionnaire and then show you how to get the graphs. Alright, cool. So I'm finished with it now. Well, I put like about 5 questions, right? 5 is enough to explain what I want to explain. So if you look at this form here, you will see that I've put the questions in. What form are you in? There's a multiple choice, there's multiple choice again, more multiple choice. Questionnaires are very multiple choice driven. There's a yes or no, there's a never, sometimes, always, often, and there's a scale of 1 to 10, and then there's a next yes or no. Now these are standard things for multiple choice for questionnaires because you want them to be quick and easy. Now when you're done with this, you're going to send the questionnaire out to people, right? So we'll name it Cafeteria Questionnaire, and then I'm going to click send, and I choose link, I shorten the URL, I take this link and I send it to everybody, right? You can send it to people in the class, you could forward it, you could click on email, and you could send the email to members of your class or whoever you want to fill it out. The point is you want to get as much people to fill it out as possible. Now, when you get the large amount of people to fill it out, a graph will be completed. So I'm going to simulate what's going to happen when they fill out the questionnaire, right? So again, this is me going to fill out the questionnaire over and over and over and over. But I'm going to show you what some of the data would look like on the back end when you fill it out. So I'll put form 5 because you're probably in form 5 and you said to form 5 friends. How often did you go to cafeteria per week? 5 for this person. How long is the line when you get there? It's normally 11 plus. Was it the chalkboard updated daily? No. How often is the menu reported wrong? You could say always. Scale of 1 to 10, how frustrated are you? 9 because this person real salty. And have you ever used a menu service in advance? Yes. Alright, so I'll submit and I'm going to do this like 5 times so I could get a graph, right? So next person in form 5, how often they go? 3 to 5 times. How long the line is? 11 plus. Do you know that there's a chalkboard? As a yes. How often is it? Also often. And then you could say how frustrated are you? There's an 8. And have you ever used a service with a menu in advance? Yes. Submit. That's 2. Third one. Let's say this one is a form 4 this time. They go 5 plus. 11 plus is always, 7 to 10 is this person. And you say it's updated daily, you choose no. Often, they say often. Or if they're frustrated, 9. Have you ever used a menu service? No. Submit. That's 3. I did one more time. On average, you want to get this questionnaire out to at least 25 people. 25 people will help you. But some people's eyes are horrible in terms of the amount of people that you could get to. So your questionnaire may not actually get to 25 people, and you really can't do anything about it because you just don't have that much people to ask. So your teacher has to kind of guide you, and the problem that you choose, you must be able to gather data. You can check video 1 for me explaining why choosing the correct problem will make sure that you get through, because if you can't gather data properly, you might mess up in this analysis part, and that will cause you a big issue. Alright, so yes, good. Submit. Okay, so now if I go back to my graph, you'll see I go by responses, and the responses will give me these neat little pie charts. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see the pie charts. Let's zoom in, right. So these are the pie charts that you will get. And Google Forms is really, really, really good at this. Google Forms is going to allow you to just copy these charts and put them in. So you want to do out of the 20 questions that you have, and you may not get 20, you might get 15, but out of that you want to get 3 good charts. 3 good charts that clearly show that there is a problem. So let me show you something. This one says, what form are you in? Does this show me that there is a problem? 80% of the people are in form 5. That not really helping anything. But however, it gives me some context, because this questionnaire is a questionnaire that the data is kind of skewed towards form 5 people, which I could use later on for something. or I may be able to state it for some reason because that's the reason I put it there. But I'm not going to use it as one of the key points of my analysis because I don't need to. How often do you go to the cafeteria per week? Look at this one. 80% of the people go to the cafeteria 5+ times per week. So you can say that there is normally a lot of people. So out of the respondents, 80% of the people use the cafeteria more than 5 times per week. That will show that the possibility is that there can be a crowd because a lot of people tend to go. So we'll copy this graph. So I'll copy this one. And I will go back to my document. And okay, so this questionnaire sample here, questionnaire rationale. Right, so I'm going to take the questionnaire rationale and I'm going to take this and put it down in my appendix because the reason I'm putting it there is because it's not supposed to be in this part of the document. Come now, oh gosh, man, mouse. Alright, that's not. I'm a professional, I can do this. Right, so I want to get it right here, good. So I'll cut this from here. And we'll go down to the appendix, which is down here. And I'm going to put the first thing here as questionnaire rationale. Alright, so I just leave in there as appendix questionnaire rationale. I'll put this in as a heading 2. Heading 2. So that it will come under the appendix. So you know that questionnaire rationale is on this page, right? So the questionnaire rationale is there and I am okay with that. What I want to do now is in the appendix, I want to put the graphs. So I will put the graphs, questionnaire graphs. Oh no, I should put in the sample questionnaire. So that'll be 1 page. And then I'll put in the completed questionnaire. And then I'll put in questionnaire graphs. Right. So all of these will go in as heading 2s because they are all different parts of the appendix and I want them to be clearly seen when I do. This is a whole mark there again here when they do this properly, right? So we put them as heading 2. Sample questionnaire, I'll take a screenshot of the actual questionnaire of somebody actually filling it out. Yeah, so I could probably just take this little piece here and show that, okay, the questionnaire is real. If you want, you can put the whole thing if you want. You can put it side by side if you feel like it. It doesn't matter to me. So I'll just put out there, sample questionnaire is inside. Alright, good. So we know that the questionnaire exists. And if you want to be like real serious about it, put the link 1 time. So that if the examiner want to be wild and be like, I don't think this questionnaire is real, it looks very fake, it's fabricated, then you'd be like, haha, I got you. So just copy the link. Got him, right? And then you copy this link, put it inside, and boom, right, good. So they can't get vexed with you, highlight it, make sure it hyperlink, and like nobody should have IFC with your life, right? So the form is there, right? So they could see that this is there. Then completed questionnaire, you could go on this part here and show that the responses are there. So you could show a completed questionnaire individual. So you could show that the individual completed the questionnaire by doing this. So you could do that. Control Shift and S if you're on Windows to snip the screen. If you're on a Mac, can't remember, something. Do that too, right? So completed questionnaire. That's not a page break this 1 time before I get in trouble with formatting. What is your problem? Right, so completed questionnaire. I'll put in some screenshots of people actually filling out the answer, right? How this goes for you, that is your choice. Questionnaire graphs now is where, this is where I'm going to reference the things that I need to talk about in the actual write-up. So questionnaire graphs now are going to lead me back to these graphs here in the responses. And I go to questions, responses, sorry. and I'll go to summary, right? So summary will give me a graph. So I want to take this graph that says how often you go to the cafeteria per week. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to put this graph inside questionnaire graphs. If only it will copy, right? Now, underneath here, I could name this figure 1, right? So I could give it, how is it figure 1? Can't remember. Image options or something like that. Size and rotation, definitely, can't remember. Anyhow, you could put graph 1 underneath it. So let's go to the internet and put graph 1. Remember what page it is on? This is on page 5 of the appendix right now, right? So you could say on top, when you go to your analysis of problem questionnaire, this is where it gets serious, right? This is our comment, right? So I'm just leaving that there for you all to see. Remember, these things here are taking them out, right? These are not parts of the eye. This is just for explanation purposes, because I'm going to make a template of it and put it inside the app, so you all could go and download the app and you can get this template if you want, right? I'm going to say, based on the answer to question 2 or 3 or whatever, yeah, 2 of the questionnaire, as seen in the graph on page 5 of the appendix. There's many ways I can reference appendix. You could say appendix 1, appendix 5, or all that kind of stuff. I just put page 5 on the appendix because, well, it's kind of straightforward to say page 5 of the appendix. But if your teacher wants you to reference it a particular way, please do so, right? Right, so based on the answer to question 1, it is clear that a large amount of people, students, go to the cafeteria on a weekly basis. So there is a chance of high crowds. Right, that's where you draw from that graph. You draw from this graph that, okay, it is clear that a lot of people go to the cafeteria because 80%. So you want to say it is clear that a large amount of students, 80% of respondents, right, so you can put it in brackets to show that that's where you read from the graph, because it's kind of simple to read it from the graph. But yeah, so you could do that. Now, sometimes in the examiner's report, I see them get vexed for giving graphs with yes or no answers. Now, I'm not too sure, because sometimes you would see in the examiner's report that they'd be like yes or no questions are better because they are shorter and easier. Sometimes you will see don't use yes or no questions. If it's possible for you not to use a yes or no question, it's okay. Go ahead. If you have yes or no questions, depending on the kind of problem that you have, well, you could use yes or no questions. Sometimes I tell students, throw 5 graphs inside instead, just in case 3 of them are not good enough or 1 of them doesn't meet the standard. Get 5 that meet the standard and the examiners can complain. So you can do that, right? So then I put again, based on the answer to question whatever. Alright, so let's go and find our next question that is clear. Do you know that there is a chalkboard that is updated daily? This is a yes or no question again, but I don't want to flood it with yes or no questions. But this is clearly a problem because 80% don't know that there is a chalkboard updated daily. So I want to put that in also. So I'll put that in because it makes sense, because it clearly shows that 80% don't know. So I'll go to my appendix again, questionnaire rationale, and not sample questionnaire, questionnaire graphs, and then I'll paste it in and I'll put graph 2. Graph 2. Right, so I'll go back up on top and I will say, based on the answer question to question 5 or whatever it is, question 5, as seen in graph 2 on page, graph 2 on page 5 of the appendix, comma, 80% of the students who responded do not know that there is a chalkboard with the menu on it. Right? Now this could go either way. It could be that they know, but they don't check it, or they don't know. But based on your real results, you will be able to draw a proper reference. You wouldn't, my sample results may not be the one that you get, but you just have to be able to come with a paragraph like this, right? Yeah. So, and then you want to say this points to a lack of information being disseminated. Yeah, something like that, right? So you do that and you say good, great, and then you go and look for another one. You kind of get the drift by now. Look at this one on a scale of 1 to 10. This one is a nice graph because I use a scale. If you could get varying stuff like this, pie charts, graphs, and if you're feeling real fancy, you could go into export it to a spreadsheet and then do your own graph. Do like a XY scatter, do like a line graph, a histogram, a bar graph, or some kind of thing like that. Because Google Forms will basically give you pie graphs, pie charts and bar graphs for everything. If you're lazy and you just want to take these alone, go ahead and take them. But if you export it to a spreadsheet and you know how to use the tools inside the spreadsheet, you'll be able to do that. And when you reach to unit 2, you'll be able to say that you use a spreadsheet to extract data instead of just Google Forms doing it for you. So that's a pro tip. You can do that if you want, and I recommend that you try to do that. If you're trying to like make sure you get these marks here, this 1 mark here, because remember all of this we're still working for 1 mark here all here, 1 mark. But that's okay, right? So we copy this guy here. How frustrated are you? You could see that all respondents, 100% of respondents are at least 70% frustrated or some kind of thing like that. So I could go to my graph, go to my appendix, questionnaire graphs, and put it down here. After graph 2 will be graph 3, right? All you need is 3, and once you 3 points or something, should be okay. This one goes down to page 6 in the appendix, so the graph 3, right? So I'll go back up to the questionnaire, and I could say, based in, you could vary it out, and like I said, based on twice, so I could say, in response to question, I don't know, question about 7 or something like that, 100% of the respondents were at least a 7 out of 10 frustrated. I ain't sounding too grammatically safe, but you can realize I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit, right? 7 out of 10 frustrated with the service time at the cafeteria. This shows that there is an issue that they need to fix. So now I have 3 paragraphs or 3 sentences basically that point to a relevant graph. If you want, you could hyperlink it in the document so that when you export it as a PDF, the examiner correcting it will be able to click on page 5 here, and I think you should be able to link it to a different part of the page. I can't remember how to do it in Google Docs, but there is a way if you want to, but you don't have to if you don't want to, right? Because they're supposed to be able to read it and go down, because we never used to do that before, but it'll just be a nice touch. You'll feel kind of smart about yourself if you want to. But the thing is, each one of these is showing that there is a clear piece of data that you have collected that points to a problem. Now, we haven't clearly stated what the problem is yet, but what we have is we stated it and then we draw some sort of short conclusion from it. And this short conclusion is what is now going to feed into your questionnaire summary, right? So you could say now, from the questionnaire, it is clear that there is an informational issue and the patrons of the cafeteria are not getting service fast enough due to the lack of information about what is available on the day. Alright, what is this? There is an informational problem due to the lack of information. Right. So now we have 3 paragraphs that clearly show that there is an issue. Alright, Dropbox, thanks. Yeah. Alright. What is happening? Sorry, Dropbox. Don't do that. Yep. Alright, so we can clearly see that there is a problem. Ta-da! You have done the questionnaire. You have done the analysis for the questionnaire. You've earned 1 mark. Just remember that in the appendix so far you have the questionnaire rationale, which is a list of questions, what you plan to choose to say, and why you choose to give that question. You have a sample questionnaire, which is a screenshot of the questionnaire, and if you want to be cool about it, put a link to the form one time so they could click on it and see it real. Completed questionnaire, where you can show screenshots of an actual completed questionnaire. And then the questionnaire graphs, these are the graphs that you're going to reference when you are writing in your document, because the appendix doesn't count to your word limit. So all these things inside here, you could just go crazy with it, but the appendix will usually have a lot of pictures and all that stuff in it. So you go back up, questionnaire is done. Our next journey will be the interviews. How do you structure the interviews? How do you get it out? And we continue building as we go along. So look out for the next video where I'll do interviews, and then I don't know if I'll do interviews in one video. We'll see how it goes, right? Because this thing will take long. See you all in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're understanding things as you go along as I try to clearly explain them in the video. If you realize that their resources are not as available for IT and computer science at the Cape level, yeah, I've realized it too. And what you may want to get would be some sort of comprehensive notes, just to let you know that all our classes are recorded and the notes are given to the students. So even if you miss a class, you could always go back and review the things that were done in the classroom, and all the notes for every single module in detail that would have been compiled over the past 10 years are given to you, so that you'll be able to get all the content that you need. Because sometimes the things on the syllabus are not very clear, and you need a teacher who has some sort of experience over time seeing the questions that they ask and understanding what you need to know. So you can check us out at 1-868-308-8799 on WhatsApp, or you can head to the website makeITsimpleTT.com/register, and you will see all the information that you need to register for our classes. Okay, so you made it this far. You're probably like totally upset because people answered the questionnaires really badly, and you got a lot of data that was kind of skewed, and now you reach the interviews part. So what do we want to do for interviews? What we want to do for interviews is sort of get the things that the questionnaire couldn't. So for the interviews, you want to try to get the things the questionnaire that would be like, you know, something along the lines of you want to find out their personal views. You want to hear what they have to say. You want to get some experiences that they may have had, or something like that. So you want to ask questions that are leading and allow them to expand on the problems. Now, in asking those questions, you are going to have to think of along the lines of an interviewer, where a normal interviewee or a normal interviewer usually has a question and then follow-up questions. So you always know what you want to ask next. But usually when you ask a question, there are 2 routes you could get: a negative response, or you could have a positive response. If you have a negative response, you want to now further ask about, okay, what does that positive response like? If they have a negative response, you want to further ask something like that. So plan the questions and have follow-ups ready to help you extract the data, right? So let's see what that would look like. It would look something like this. Let's go back to black. All right, so I will put all this going in the appendix after. Just remember, all of these things go in the appendix. Question 1 would be, what do you think contributes most to the long lines in the cafeteria? Now, the person could answer all sorts of things. They could say rain, they could say like thunderstorms, they could say the door too small, they could say that people walk slowly, all sorts of things like that. And you now have to be prepared for whatever they say. So you could be like, okay, whatever they answer, you would now have to say, okay, I heard you mention the notice board. They move slowly. Do you ever see children reading the menu? A lot, right? Now the thing is, you didn't lead them into talking about the menu. You asked them a question, and then when they answered, somewhere along the line they mentioned about the menu. They mentioned about people moving really slow, right? So now you could follow up and say, oh, I heard you say people move very slowly. Do you ever see people crowded around the notice board? Now notice you got to lead into the question, but you didn't explicitly tell them that you want to find out about the notice board or the chalkboard that in our example here, right? So just in case you'll remember, our problem definition says that they take a long amount of time reading what is written on the chalkboard outside the cafeteria. This leads to long lines and disgruntled patrons, right? So I want to now say, all right, cool. Do they move slowly, right? Now, you know that they're going to say that there's a problem. Hopefully that they say that they move slowly. But here, move slowly, I'm just going to underline it because you could flip this to anything that you want. But while you're doing an interview, that's when you want to flip it. You want to make sure that you are able to follow up because you know kind of what you're trying to look for, but you don't want to force the people into giving you a particular answer because you don't want to be that kind of person now, right? Alright, so second question would be, has the cafeteria ever tried different methods of giving out the menu? And now they could answer all sorts of things. And now you'd be like, oh, so when they use flyers, did you ever get one? What did you do with the flyers? Right? You realize you have to kind of think on your feet. And you have to think about, okay, what are the things that they will most likely say? They would say that the cafeteria try to implement flyers, they try to announce it in the morning, or something like that. You want to show that they know that they have a problem, there is a problem, you experience the problem, and you're trying to figure out, okay, that's where the issue actually is, right? Now, your interview doesn't have to be only the people that experience any problem. Your interview could be with the people on the inside also. So you could interview staff members. Now, if you were interviewing staff members, you do a totally different questionnaire, and the different questionnaire could be along the lines of, let's say, staff members. Because remember, questionnaires don't have to be all that long. I mean, you don't need to have, that large amount of people. You just need to have clear, in-depth data. So we could say this will be student questionnaire. Right? Remember, your fact-finding techniques don't always have to be on the actual people that experience the problem on the outside. It could be the people that are part of the problem on the inside, because you may interview like a manager, may interview like a boss, may interview like an administrator, and they will tell you that they probably tried to fix it knowing that, and they know that they have a problem or some kind of thing like that, and all that helps you because it clearly shows that there's a problem, right? But keep in mind that it's not just the people that experience it on the outside. You can get information from the inside that will gel with the information you get from the outside, and you'll still be able to choose the correct solution, right? Alright, so if it was a staff member questionnaire, you could now put it in a way that says, I don't know, something like when trying different ways to get the information out, what has worked best so far? What kind of answers they will give you? We don't know, but you could say when the announcements were made, on the PA system, how much did you think people listened? Right? Things like that. You want to follow up. You want to show that they tried to fix it, it didn't work properly. They tried this, they write on a board, they get a whiteboard, they try to put it in front of the school, they put a Bristol board, all sorts of different things. You want to show that there is an information problem. And you want to show that there is a problem. So far you're kind of guessing there's an information problem, so your questionnaire is trying to extract how much of an information problem it is or where the information problem really comes from. You try to do that, something along those lines. So that should give you enough information on how to structure it. Of course, your problem will be totally different, but this is the way you have to think about it. When you think about it, you will have the questionnaire. Now, this is not questionnaire, this is student interview. Sorry, I'll put questionnaire, it should be interview. I still have questionnaire in my mind because I was just doing the questionnaires. Things the interview couldn't. Alright. Student interview. Cool. Supplement interview. So from here, you're going to take this interview stuff now, and you're going to go to your appendix again. After your questionnaire graphs, you'll hit a page break there, and you'll go to interview questions. I put in reviewers, interview questions. You will hit data heading 2 so that it'll come up in the table of contents. Table of content or table of contents? I stopped fighting it here. Alright, so you put the interview questions there, and then you paste the interviews of what they said. And then underneath that now you have to put sample interview answers, I believe. Sample interview answers. You could page break that too, send that down, head into it. Hit that head into, and alright, so in here you're going to put an image of however they answer the questions. Now, if you go and answer the questions and you write it down in a book, cool, that's the responses. If you ask them it on WhatsApp, you want to put a screenshot of that there. So I'll just assume that you all ask somebody the questions on WhatsApp because, well, at the time of the making of this video, we were in a pandemic, or we are in a pandemic, and meeting people is dangerous and all that stuff. So you're probably going to answer ask by WhatsApp, right? So I'll just put a random WhatsApp conversation. WhatsApp. See if I can find a random conversation. Yeah, random conversation here. Put that in. Right, so the WhatsApp conversation is there. You could show all the answers to the questions that you got over whatever time, and show that somebody actually answered the interview questions. Now, what you really want to do up by the interview side here is you want to just put a summary. So you could say, based on the 5 students that were interviewed They all answered question 1, PIWED. They all answered question 1 saying that let's call this thing one. The lines are caused because people are spending too much time to determine what they want to get. Some respondents even said they try to ask their friends before they come back, before they go to the cafeteria. Alright, you have to kind of wing this because the answers I could get could be from anything and anywhere. When it came to asking the staff, they all seemed to respond positively to creating a new way of disseminating information to the students, because they have tried many different ways. Alright, you see where we're going here? We're trying to talk to them, hear what's going on, and then based on what they say, you come with all the paragraph here, right? Now, the sample responses that you have, the sample responses that you put here could be the ones that show that. So you could tell them, an example of this is seen in appendix, I don't know what page that is in the appendix, page 7, showing a respondent saying, quote, blah 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 blah. Right? This will get you some heavy brownie points because it will show that you didn't just draw the conclusion, but you actually have the quote of the statement that they said and the print screen to show it. And if you have the print screen to show it, cool. But remember, not all of you all are going to actually do a WhatsApp conversation. You may do an email and you might get responses from them via email. But if you do email, it's hard because the interview needs to be kind of back and forth now. So it's better you actually meet the person and talk to them and write it down. And if you write it down, you could like put a transcript of the interview that they got or some kind of thing like that. There are all kind of things that you could do. You could use the imagination, but the goal is you're trying to extract the information from them as clearly as possible. Once you extract that information clearly, you should be in a good place. Alright, so that's interviews. And once you have these paragraphs here, should be good to go. Next one is, right, yeah, so next is review of documents. So next part of the video, I will show you a review of documents. How you could do that one. Actually, I think I'll do observation first. No, we'll do review of documents and then we'll do observation. We are on to review of documents. We're on to the stage where, well, you already done the hard part in terms of questionnaires and interviews. They usually are staple. Everybody always has to do that. But the questionnaires and interviews could usually take up time and you have to actually interact with people. Review of documents and observations, they're a whole different kettle of fish. Kettle of fish? Why? What's that kettle of fish? But anyhow, yeah. Right? It's a little different because you don't have to actually talk to people. You have to analyze things. And analyzing things from far requires you to get the thing for the review of documents, and the observation requires you to spend time. But we'll go into it, right? So with the review of documents, what you want to do is you want to get real documents that show the state of the business or institution. You need to show their current setup is lacking by providing real examples. For databases, you might want to get like registration forms, data capture examples, something that shows the business process. If you're doing a database, or if you're going down the road of a database, you want to show that those things are the problems where you're trying to find the inefficiencies in the system. For websites, you want to get things like how the information is currently presented, how it's disseminated, what it looks like, flyers, posters, how the information actually gets out. You want to get real life examples of those things so that you could basically nitpick them. The goal is to show that the issue exists in a real set of documents. So in this example, we're going to be going down the route of a website, but you can also go down the route of a database if you try to find inefficiencies inside the system or something like that. Now, for a database example, what you'd want to do is show how they capture the data, how they process the data. So you're basically trying to create a simple context diagram or simple data flow diagram and show that there's a breach in the system. But I'm not going to do that in this example because we're going on the route of our website. If you need help for the database one, then I don't know, you could leave a message underneath, or I might just give you a short example of how to do it, right? So here's what we will do. Ooh, I gotta get comfortable now. I'm sitting down too long. All right, let's go. Sit up, proper posture. All right, let's go. Right. So the review of documents, you're going to go to your appendix. Clearly, you need to go to your appendix. Take off the color. Right, so now we want to go to your appendix and you're creating a section underneath here after this image here, a page break, and you will put sample documents. Alright, you will head into that because of course you want it to be neat. Just for you all to understand, so far, here's what the table of contents going to look like. Right now the table of contents, it had all this stuff from before, but now if I go to the table of contents and I refresh this, you see the table of contents starting to look, it'll look fresh, because you can clearly see the layout of every single thing that you have and the different parts of all the different things. That's a mark. This table of contents coming out nice. When you set the layout out properly, you don't have to go and format all of this after. You just do it one time, right? But anyhow, going back to sample documents. So I'll jump down to that. Right. So the sample documents will be whatever pictures or images that you collect from your research, right? So I'm going to just show you some simple. I just going to insert random images, not from any real place, but I'll put like a flyer, cafeteria flyer. Let's see what Google will come up with. Cafeteria flyer, yay! Right. So look, I got a picture of a chalkboard. How nice is that? This is perfect, excellent. So, because I am doing an example of a cafeteria and I want to show that their way of disseminating the information is poor because it's something like a chalkboard, guess what? I go and take a picture of the chalkboard. That is a document because it doesn't have to be like a piece of paper. So I could get this document and now I could say, okay, what page is this in the appendix? This is page 9. So I go to the review of documents. As seen on page 9 of the appendix, the chalkboard used has many issues when it comes to disseminating data. And then you just this paragraph with all the issues. It could be like it's dirty. The chalk, the board is not erased properly on a daily basis, so the writing from the day before is not always not always. No, it's still visible. It's still visible, which makes reading the new information hard. Something like that, and then you would be like colors used. They use colored chalk, but the chalk is not evenly, I don't know, dispersed. Something like that, right? You're basically showing that you have looked at an image and you draw some conclusions from it. That is your goal. If you could look at the image, draw some conclusions from it, you're good to go. Especially for website people, you're literally just nitpicking how they share information. Now let's say you get another piece of information, which is like a flyer that they do, right? So let's say they have the board there, and then you learn from an interview that they used to have flyers. So you get one of those flyers. So let's get one of those flyers. See, it look like this, right? Let's say it's a flyer that looks like trash, right? Yeah, something like this, right? You could now say on page 10 of the appendix, where am I? Review documents here. And then you could say, as seen on page 10 of the appendix, the flyer used are not very attractive because they use poor fonts. Put some technical words, bam, you get your review documents marks there. Pretty straightforward. That's the website route. Now if you go the database route, what you want to do is you want to get a form that they filled out. So let's say the people have to fill out a registration form. They fill out the registration form, but it just has lines. You want to show that the lines are not good for data capture because you could have verification and validation mistakes because they should fill it out in block letters. The information for date, month, year, when they have to put in their dates, they do have the formatting for day, month, year. Those sort of things. You want to find your registration forms and you want to show that their data capture is poor, so your database will take that into consideration when you actually build a database. And those are things that kind of easy for you to do. So you get some real forms, you get some real pieces of information, and then you nitpick them to show that there is an issue clearly because they can't see the information on the chalkboard, or if you're doing a database that the collection of data is done very poorly, and then you could show that there is a logbook, and the logbook has to take all the information from the sheets of paper that they have and put it inside a logbook, and the way that the logbook is structured with columns, the things can't fit properly. I mean, you get the hang of it by now. You're really trying to collect real documents and show why there is an issue, whether you're going website or whether you're going database. But of course, in this example, I'm going website. But the database people, don't worry. When we get to Unit 2, I'll show you an example of how the database would kind of look, right? Cool. Now we're on to our last part, which is observation. Observation is the longest one, other than the questionnaire, but observation requires you to do real life things, and observation could be ticklish for two reasons. One, the problem that you're observing may not be a problem that occurs throughout the year. So in this case, we're doing a cafeteria, so the problem occurs every single day, so once you're in school, it's there. So sometimes you might be checking a problem that happens at the start of the term each time, which will be like advertising and that kind of stuff. So you may not be able to do observation because you can't actually observe any time frame between October to April. The actual thing doesn't happen, but the problem does exist, and you were able to get data from all the other places before. So your three forms of finding data, questionnaires, interviews, and reviewer documents, may be able to solve a problem that, let's say, happens in September only when students now come into the school. So what you want to do is, when you're doing an observation, you should have a problem that you can observe happening on a daily basis or falls within the time frame of October to April thereabout. Well, don't go to April, October to February. So let's say somewhere around between October to February, that's where you want to be able to observe the problem. Now, if your problem is not falling within that range, I mean, your observation probably wouldn't be one of the things that you have to choose. That's why they only tell you that you only need 3 of them, because at any point in time, questionnaire interviews, observations, or review documents would be able to fit. Or you could do observation, interviews, and review documents if you want, and don't do a questionnaire. It's up to you, but usually observation is seasonal, so just keep that in mind, right? So when you do an observation, you want to get real life observations of things taking place over a period of time. So it should be planned in advance and measured over a reasonable time frame. So you don't want to spend a whole month observing. You probably want to spend 2 weeks max doing the observations. And the goal is to have data that clearly points to the issue. So what you want to do is you want to create something like a observation checklist. So I'm going to go into the appendix. Actually, no, I'll put it right here. And then I will put it in the appendix after, right? Because it really supposed to go in the appendix. So let's see what it goes. What is going to see? Right here. So what I want to do is create an observation checklist. So let's see what I want to do. Now it's easy to do it in the form of a table. So I'll kind of show you a table that will go for like a few weeks. So I'll put criteria, no observation, and then I'll put day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. I should put day 5. Yeah, I'll put day 5. Day 5, right. Now the thing that I'm observing usually should be something that I could count or something that I could say yes or no, because I want to draw information from this table very quickly. Alright, let's see. So the observation will be number of students in the line at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. is when the cafeteria probably opening or something, right? So day 1, I see 12 people. Day 2, I see 14 people. Day 3, I see 15. Day 4, I see 11. Day 5, I see 13. Cool. That's good stuff there, because this may align with what you got in the interviews and what you got in your questionnaire. So if the observations align with what you get in the interview and questionnaire, you have lots of meat to work with. So you're trying to observe things that were said in the questionnaires and the interviews. And you could say empirical things like length of time one person takes, one random person. No, length of time person at the length of time the 10th person takes to get served. And you could get in minutes. So you could say, okay, 5 minutes for the person at line position 10 in the line, they took that long. 3 minutes the next day, 6 minutes the next day, 7 minutes another day, 4 minutes another day. That way you could show the average serve time for somebody in the line who at position 10 is that, and you could point out that there's an issue, right? Other things that you could do, I'll give you one more example. Another example would be something like, let's say you have time that the chalkboard is put out for viewing. And then you could say, okay, it went out at 7 a.m., then it went out at 7:30 a.m., And then another day it was 8 a.m. and next time it was not at all. And then another time could be 9 a.m. What you want to do is you want to observe these things, and when you observe these things, you are going to draw conclusions. So we'll take this observation checklist. So I'll take the whole observation checklist and I will go and put it down in the, let's call this in the appendix again. So after I have the sample documents there, I head down and I will go to it's a page break, and I'll go to observation checklist. Put in the observation checklist here. That will be heading 2. Right, so we have the observation checklist. Right. Under the observation checklist, I'm going to paste in the. Right. Now I have a table, and the table has information. So I'm going to try to pull out stuff from that table. So I'll go back to observation and say things like, based on the observation checklist, the average wait time for a student at position 10, line was, I don't know, 7 minutes. You calculate the average. This shows that the wait time for people after them may be longer than the actual allotted break time. Alright, that's a nice conclusion to draw. And you could say it was also noted that the the notice board for the menu was put out at a time when the students would not be able to see it in advance. This would mean that they have to read it when they get there. Right? You could do things like that. And of course, your observations will be your observations, so you have to be able to draw your own conclusion. But this is the kind of mindset you need to have to it. And once you have that observation, then now you have all the fact-finding techniques done, and it's properly reviewed. Or you could say, based on the observation checklist on page 11 of the appendix. Yeah, page 11 of the appendix. Remember to reference it, right? Because they must be able to go and see it from there. When you go to the observation checklist, they see it and they can prove that your data matches your conclusion. And now that you have your 4 fact-finding techniques, you can move on to the next part, which is your final analysis. So let's go to the final analysis and see how we finally get the 3 marks that we're looking for. So now we reach to the final part of the analysis stage, which is your conclusion of your analysis. And all your fact-finding techniques are supposed to have now come together like a nice little avalanche, a little snowball, and they all joined. Snowball, why did I say snowball? Let's say like callaloo. You mix up all the food or rice and peas or something, and it's all come together, and this is where you sell your final answer. Now, according to the examiner's report, they would say students are encouraged to properly analyze the possible causes, utilizing the data tools to gather information on the causes for future interpretation, rather than approach the data capturing techniques with preconceived ideas of how the problem should be resolved. Students should avoid recommending solutions at this phase of the SPA. So you don't want to recommend a solution here. You just want to show this is the problem and this is how I can prove it. Yeah, I can prove there's a problem. So you want to say, in light of all the analysis that was done, it is clear that there is an informational problem that leads to high wait times at the cafeteria. The tools used all showed common trends of lack of information being received by the students, and this causes a lot of indecision on their part, which contributes to the long lines. In particular, the observations backed up the answers that were given in the questionnaire with respect to wait times. Also, the review of documents showed that the menu was not legible, which many respondents spoke about. So it is clear that the information about the menu is a major issue that needs to be solved. That's what you're trying to get out of them. You're trying to get some sort of, try to show that you have checked it out, you've put them on top of each other, you mapped them, you looked at how the questionnaires were, you looked at the things that you got in the interview, did the review of documents match some of the answers, did the observations actually show that the thing is actually happening. You had to work that. And this paragraph here will cement your 3 marks. Now if you do all the analysis properly, you should get your 3 marks, and this final analysis is to show that you didn't just do the analysis for doing its sake, but you actually internalize what was taking place, because that's the goal. As I said, this had no way that this should only be 3 marks, because wherever you make a mistake, your teacher could has a right to take away a mark just for making a mistake with a graph, having bad questions, not giving a good sentence, all sorts of things you can lose marks for, and it's only 3 marks. And I see students lose marks here all the time because they made one little mistake, but you can't let certain mistakes pass. So I really recommend you pay attention to this analysis stage and make sure that what you're doing is continuous and it flows and it makes sense, because a lot of the times this is very disjointed by some students because they just do a questionnaire for doing its sake, do some interviews, do some observations, but you can't see that there is a chain that's kind of linking them that comes together in this final paragraph. So that is the analysis stage. This is the longest part of the IA. After this is just more documentation. So I'll see you all in the next video where we go to identify and evaluate possible solutions. Thanks for watching the video. I hope it helped you a lot. Remember, there are multiple videos that go through each different part of the IA in details. If you want a particular part that you're looking for, you can check the playlist. The playlist link will be in the bottom here. If you're using the app, you can check in the app and you will see the playlist for it also to show you all the parts that are necessary. If you're looking for quality information technology and computer science classes at the CAPE level, you can check us out, makeITsimpleTT at 1-868-308-8799, or you can check us online at makeITsimpleTT.com/register and use all of our free resources. But if you're looking for a class that has recordings and explanations for every single thing that you need to do in the whole syllabus, you can check us out.